This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
The evidence is gone, but the nightmare continues. Welcome to Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski, featuring former prosecutor and defense attorney Eric Faddis.
Scott Peterson, we're hearing a lot about him suddenly. Well, it's because there's two documentaries that are coming out about him, one on Peacock, one on Netflix, both telling very different sides of the story. I actually had a chance to watch the one on Netflix just last night, very much going through everything that took place from the side of the victims. We heard from Amber Fry. We even also heard from his sister-in-law, who still stands behind him. And the other one, we actually hear from Scott Peterson. As of this recording, not out yet. Haven't seen any of that, but it's going to be very fascinating. He's trying to get his conviction overturned and get a new trial after, well, they're trying to look at some duct tape, saying that there might be some DNA on there that might not belong to him. Joining me to discuss, Eric Faddis, defense attorney, former prosecutor. Is that enough? I mean, it's duct tape. One could argue that you're in the store and you're getting duct tape and people touch the duct tape. There's going to be other DNA on the duct tape. Does simply not having Scott's DNA or having another person's DNA on the duct tape warrant a whole new trial, considering all the other damning evidence in this case?
I think it depends on the nuances of the DNA findings. So like you said, okay, if there's another person's DNA on the duct tape, but also Scott Peterson's, and this duct tape was wrapped around Lacey Peterson's legs or whatever, I'm not sure that's enough to win the day, because like you said, there could be some inadvertent contact by someone else, whatever. But if they look at the duct tape and Scott Peterson's DNA is ruled out, and there is at least one other profile, I think that might... it depends on the court, but I think that we're getting closer to getting a possible new trial. And so I think we're all kind of waiting with bated breath to see what the DNA folks say.
I don't know. I refreshed myself on the whole case last night, and I went, oh, yeah, he's guilty as sin. Because there's just so many damning things here. I mean, the boat anchors that were homemade in the garage, you can see where they were made. There was still one in his boat. He went out on this fishing trip. Nobody even knew he had this boat. It was supposedly going to be a gift, which is a bullshit story. And yes, and he happens to then, the bodies happen to be found right about where he went fishing as well. And his fishing story, I'm going fishing for sturgeon with a line. You don't fish for sturgeon with a line. I only know that because I grew up in Wisconsin. But for the love of God, there are so many things. And yes, it was very much a circumstantial case. But so much looks bad for him. And we're not even talking about the affair as well. How do you do a Scott Peterson trial number 2? Just like, hey, everybody, look, there's other DNA on the duct tape. Ignore all of this.
Yeah, it's hard because those, like you said, this is circumstantial, but there's a lot of circumstances that point in his direction.
Yes.
And they compound over time, especially in a trial for a jury. And so you might have this sort of one out where you're saying, oh, but look at this. What about this? And that's a fair argument. But I'm not sure that's going to be enough for a jury to just overlook all of the stuff you mentioned, in addition to him allegedly trying to flee the jurisdiction, changing his hair color, and a number of other factors.
I know, like originally the thought was kind of there was that burglary next door as well. They did find them, and they're like, we got nothing to do with this. And pretty much prove that they have nothing to do with the murder of Lacey Peterson. But there are just so many things here that get darker and darker, including that affair. I don't know that one would completely argue that he was taken out because of the affair. It certainly didn't help things at all. It really showed a lot more about his character and his personality and his ability to lie. And I'm sure that will be brought up again in this case. That to me was one of the scariest parts of it, because it shows the capabilities at which he was able to perform or act when put in front of people that he supposedly cared about.
Yeah, definitely. And his inconsistent statements, his deception were central at the first trial. And it's hard to explain that away at trial as a defense attorney. It's hard to, talk about why he would have lied about some of this stuff and then say, oh, but he's absolutely not guilty of what he was being investigated of. It's just such a hard sell, especially when you have all of these past lies, all these inconsistencies, all the infidelity, the just sort of uncouth way of going about this before, during, and after.
That's a big thing, the before, during, and after. I was watching some of that footage of his interviews and such, because initially he was, part of the team on TV talking about what was going on and searching for his wife. But you know what it also reminded me of a recent case? Madeline Soto and her mom, Jen Soto, where there seemed to be a complete disconnect from what we're talking about of your daughter is missing or now dead. Scott seemed to be much more, I don't know. It felt like he was doing an interview for, I don't know, whatever company he's working for. It felt more like a product interview than it did, or a corporate interview than it did. Help me find my dead wife. And that's a big thing. I mean, I know some people show emotion differently, but I think the argument there with Scott is, does he even have emotion about any of this?
Yeah, he sort of appears emotionally hollow at some points during some of these presentations. And granted, Tony, that there's no playbook on when your wife if you didn't do it and your wife goes missing, and you're in the midst of this affair anyway, and you also got life stuff you're dealing with. Yeah, that might cause a person to act in a way that others wouldn't expect. But just dealing with humans over time, as the juries have done, they didn't buy it. And if there's another jury, I'm not sure they're going to buy it either.
No, you can be a sociopath and still not be a murderer. Somebody else, I mean, the evidence certainly points to him being the murderer, but even if he wasn't the murderer, you can still be a sociopath and have no emotion and no empathy for someone. That happens all the time, and people don't get killed. So, I mean, that could be part of it. But again, the evidence here, I'm just not seeing why, number one, why the LA Innocence Project even took this thing up. And then, number two, okay, so we find some extra DNA. It doesn't negate everything else.
It doesn't. But I wonder if the court erred a little bit in not granting DNA testing of, so with respect to the burglary, there was allegedly a van nearby and there was a mattress nearby, and there may have been blood on the mattress, and defense asked to test the mattress, and the judge declined that request. And I thought that might have been not the right move, because if we're talking about getting to the truth and you're already going to allow DNA testing of the tape, why not allow it of the mattress too? But at any rate, Scott Peterson does not have that avenue, and his recourse is dwindling as we speak.
Could the judge change their ruling on that? Let's say that they find some interesting things on the duct tape that point to it maybe being not Scott Peterson or someone else. Could they go back and say, okay, well, we got this. Why don't we go check the mattress as well?
Defense can certainly make that request and say, hey, judge, I understand your prior ruling, not letting us DNA test the mattress, but look at what we found on the duct tape. Look at this profile or something. Maybe it's associated with a career criminal in the area who was familiar with the neighborhood or something. Does that then give the judge added reason to allow testing of the mattress? It very well could.
It's going to be fascinating to see where this goes. And if we do get a Peterson trial too, odds. What do you think? What are the odds of Scott Peterson getting a retrial on this?
Pretty slim, Tony. I think, like you said, even if there's something on this duct tape, that itself might not even be enough to get the retrial, let alone win at a new trial.
Yeah. All right, true crime addicts, let's cut the crap. You're knee-deep in the gory details of your favorite podcast when suddenly a commercial hits like a bad meal. Seriously? You deserve better. Upgrade to True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts, where you can binge without those annoying ads. Plus, get extended interviews that go deeper into the darkness and early access to episodes so you can be the first to know. It's like trading up from fast food to fine dining, but with more blood. So, go ahead. Search for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe and feast on the good stuff.